Hello, welcome to Walk in the Park. My name is Tony Ingram, and this is August 16th, 2017. And you can watch all my episodes of Walk in the Park if you're going to my video blog, walkinthepark.tv, walkinthepark.tv. You see all my episodes, and you can also see the full schedule of cable casts once I get it up for the week. And this is being produced at Pegasus Studios in Ithaca, New York, public access television. You can go to pegasus.webstarts.com and see the schedule of all the programs, all the series, and their descriptions and so forth. And you can also get involved and take a class and become a public access certified producer yourself here in Ithaca, New York. So Pegasus stands for Public Educational Government Access System. So all those three functions: schools, colleges, government, so forth, and then individual citizens who become producers get their material shown here on public access television in Ithaca. Well, this show, being Walk in the Park, is going to we're going to go to a place called Carpenter Falls, which is another waterfall. Like we have a lot of waterfalls around Ithaca. This one is over by Skaneateles Lake. But before we go there, I'm going to just talk a couple of minutes about something else that happened in the country this weekend that we're all aware of, that happened in a park in Charlottesville, Virginia. And that is a statue, maybe the top is cut off there, maybe appropriately so, I don't know, of Robert E. Lee in what's now called Emancipation Park in Charlottesville, Virginia. And I myself, I've got my Virginia hat, University of Virginia hat on. I used to live in Virginia. I was born in Virginia. 30 years ago, I lived in Charlottesville. My mother lived there for more than 40 years. I brought her up to Ithaca for her final years. So what was going on there? I still have a lot of friends there. What was going on there deeply affected me. So this is police that are guarding that statue because the city of Charlottesville decided this spring, they renamed the park from Lee Park, Robert E. Lee Park, to Emancipation Park. The statue was put in 100 years ago, and they finally decided to remove it because it's a symbol of the Confederacy and the resurgence of white supremacy in the South following Reconstruction and the Civil War. So you're probably aware that the statues have been removed in various places around the South. There are hundreds more to go, but this became a focal point for the Ku Klux Klan, white nationalists, Nazis, American Nazis, neo-Nazis, whatever you want to call them, white supremacists, to come and protest that, but also unite the right, they called themselves, called the event. And it converged on the park, and there was a lot of confusion there, and I guess some confrontations, and folks stood up to them. And of course we know there was terrible violence, and particularly a loss of life where one of the Nazis drove down a street and hit a whole lot of people, injured about 19-20 people, and killed Heather Heyer, I'm sorry. And here they are, some people saying this park ought to be renamed in her honor. The statue is still in the process of being decided upon what they're going to do with it, but it should be removed at some point, I believe. Well, on Sunday, all that stuff happened on Friday and Saturday. On Sunday, we had a rally in DeWitt Park. There was a couple hundred people there in support of the people in Charlottesville and the horrible events that took place there, supporting the people who stood up against fascism and Nazism in Charlottesville. And we talked a lot about what we need to do locally to confront racism and inequality and various kinds of isms in the community. And a lot of people had things to share that I never thought of. But I'm not going to go into all of that because we're going to go to Skaneateles Lake. Now, if you look on the right of this Google Earth picture of the Finger Lakes, off to the right, you'll see a marker there that says Carpenter Falls. That is on the southwest flank of Skaneateles Lake. Here is a Bill Hecht aerial photograph. Now, you can see the valley, and I guess it's a community called Scott down there. The valley of Skaneateles Lake trending north, and it's very steep on its sides. And going up around the corner of the lake, we'll be getting up there. Here's another view I think Bill did this one as well. This is from the eastern side looking southwest. Really beautiful shot. And here's a picture I took last year or the year before. Now, you see a point sticking out on the lake there in the upper center. I think it's not that point, perhaps another around the bend that we'll be going to eventually. Here's another Google Earth shot looking. There's Skaneateles Lake running from the lower left to the upper right. And then you can see in the middle there it says Carpenter Falls, and that's that is where it is along the lake shore there. So we're going to zoom in. And this is a whole gorge. It's not just a waterfall. Like we have gorges around Ithaca, most of the Finger Lakes have some gorges around them. And Carpenter Falls is at the head of the Bear Swamp Creek Gorge, which ends up having formed a little delta in the lake down below. And I haven't been able to find out the name of that point. But and then this is the Finger Lakes Land Trust map of the preserve. So what this is a combination of a Department of Environmental Conservation small preserve that encompasses the falls, which is about where that star is. That's actually where the parking lot is, and then pretty much everything to the above that to the right is what's called the Bahar Nature Preserve, and that's run by the Finger Lakes Land Trust. So together it's the Carpenter Falls Bahar Preserve. And so we're going to go down to where you park. The falls is right down at the bottom of this picture. The falls are down in there, so within the preserve area. There's an aerial shot. I think this was taken by Bill Hecht as well. So there's the top of the falls. The extreme left is about where you park, and then there's a trail that goes through the woods to get to the falls. But you can see that there's a road there that goes around the top of the falls, and we'll talk about that again in a few minutes. Here I parked my car, and there's a little kiosk in there with information and some background on the preserve and its history. And then here's some more history here of the preserve. And Carpenter was a fellow who owned much of the area, I guess, and he had a grist mill, and he also had a distillery. And this is from that exhibit there. It's obviously the weather's gotten to it. Old Still at Carpenter's Falls. So back in the 1800s, before 1870 or so, it was legal to produce alcohol from grain. And in fact, that was the only way that farmers could really ship their grain a long ways sometimes, is by turning it into booze and then shipping it out. So there was a still there. And then after it became taxed by the government, people tried to hide their operations. So it says there. Well, there is a path that goes down to the falls, but it's not like a real civilized path like we have in the state park gorges, but it's a little bit funky and like in most DEC paths. But here's the path. Starts out pretty easy. Somebody put up a couple of paintings they made from the preserve. So this is the kind of path it is. It's just a footpath. I noticed, now you look on the left of this picture, there's some evergreens on the left of the trail. These are you don't see this much anymore. This is called Canadian yew, Taxus canadensis, and it looks a lot like hemlock. In fact, sometimes it's called ground hemlock, but it's not hemlock, not like the hemlock trees. It is a kind of yew, and it grows on the ground. And it's used to be quite common, and I was surprised to see such a patch like this because it's the deer. We have an overpopulation of deer now, and they love yew. And if you grow any yew around your house, or someplace like that, then ornamental yew, as you know, the deer really go after it. Well, they've wiped out most of the yew that's in the area, except on the steepest of slopes, and they like the shade. The yew likes the shade in these glens and other places like it. There was a patch that looked just like this in Upper Robert H. Streaman State Park along the Rim Trail, not too far along it. And that's completely gone. It's been gone for maybe 20 years now, but I remember it back in the 1980s as being rather lush. But the deer just ate it away. So we'll continue down the path. You see it gets a little bit rougher towards the falls. There's actually somebody walking on the trail down there that goes in. You can see the beginning of the waterfall through the woods. There, now you can see the waterfall. It's a 90-foot waterfall. Getting closer. All right, finally, this is about as far as you want to go on relatively secure footing. But there's the waterfall pouring over an overhanging ledge of Tully Limestone, it's called, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But it's 90 feet tall, and it's the head of the ravine. So here we are, Walk in the Park, walkinthepark.tv. We're going to Carpenter Falls over by Skaneateles Lake. So let's take another aerial picture here of Carpenter Falls. Let me see. I was going to do something actually that last waterfall. Let me go back to that. That last picture of the waterfall. I think I have a little video to show you actually. Let me just double check on that on my list of stuff here. I believe that's the case. Just want to get to my notes just to confirm that that is what we're doing. We're going to look at a video. Come on up. Come on up. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, we have a video for you here. So stand by. I'm going to play our first video. This is one I took. This was in May when I took this. Okay, so okay, now we go to take a look at some more aerial shots, obviously not taken this time of year, by my friend Bill Hecht. And notice that you can again, we can see that road that goes around the top of the falls. There's a lot of places where there are waterfalls in the Finger Lakes and they run the roads around the top of them because it's a lot easier than building a big bridge across a gorge. So okay, so now you look at the top of the falls, you can actually get access in there. There's a trail that goes up from the other trail, and you can kind of make your way over here. So I'm going to show you another quick little video here. This is the view from almost at the road, looking down to the top of the falls, and there's a couple of people there right on the brink of the falls. So let's see what that looks like. Go to that vid. So you can get right to the top of the falls. I don't know if I recommend it. We won't let you get to the top of, say, Ganic Falls like that, because if you go over, it's 90 feet. You won't survive. Okay, we're going to now look at some other views of the falls here. Here's I think there's another Bill Hecht picture, obviously at a different time of year than the other ones, which were in the fall, looking down in there. And here's the winter shot. Now, this is actually right underneath the big overhanging ledge that the waterfall pours over. So this is what it looks like, well, in the spring or summer, and that's a big overhanging ledge, and the person, I think it probably might have been Bill, got under there. Look at that amazing icicle. These pictures, this picture anyway, was taken off the Finger Lakes Land Trust, as was this one, Land Trust website. So Okay, so let me see what we've got coming up here. You Okay, we're going to actually look at a video by the Finger Lakes Land Trust that of Carpenter Falls. They've given me a permission to share with you. It's coming right up. Okay, that's pretty nice. I'm going to show theirs last because it's better than mine. Okay, this is Walk in the Park, walkinthepark.tv. See all my episodes, see the schedule of the cable cast if you go to my website. So now we're going to look at some interesting geological comparisons between Carpenter Falls and some of our other waterfalls in the area. Now we're looking at the top here, and you know this is ledge that goes around that the falls go over, and that ledge of rock is a kind of limestone, whereas the rock below it is a shale. And these are sedimentary rock layers laying down in an ancient ocean that covered central and western New York State and Pennsylvania and other states back hundreds of millions of years ago, probably 350 to 400 million years ago. And different things settled on the bottom, like clay and silt and sand and lime, which was probably in shallow water with a lot of algal action. This would have been tropical at the time. It would have been, tropical or subtropical. And the algae left a lot of lime in the water, which compressed into this limestone, which is tougher than the shale, which is mostly clay. So it forms sort of a cap rock. And this layer of Tully Limestone extends across much of central New York State and appears in places where there are gorges and waterfalls. For instance, this is Tinker Falls, which is to the east, and it's north of Cortland, south of Syracuse. It's actually east of the Finger Lakes, and just a little bit. And it is pouring over the Tully Limestone. That's also a DEC preserve in the Labrador Hollow natural area, unique natural area. And then we go back west of Skaneateles Lake to the Owasco Lake Valley, and just south of Moravia and Owasco Lake is the Fillmore Glen State Park, and there is a waterfall there called the Lower Falls in an area called the Cowshed. Some people call it the Cowshed Falls, but at the top of that the waterfall pours over this ledge, same formation of limestone, only a few feet thick, but it's tougher than the rocks above and below. And it pours over this layer of limestone on its way to the top of the falls. And similar story over on the east side of Cayuga Lake. This is Ludlowville Falls in Salmon Creek, and it's a very popular place in the village of Ludlowville in the town of Lansing. Small park there. And then we go to Ganic Falls State Park on the west side of the lake. And again, here is the Tully Limestone, which forms the bottom of Ganic Gorge for most of its length. And it ends at the very first waterfall you see when you walk up the gorge. This lower falls here, just a short drop here. So it is the floor of Ganic Gorge. So that's pretty good. That's pretty cool. So now we're going to take a look at the rest of the preserve. So we'll go up to the up in the air again here. People do make their way down below the trail, down to the stream, and there are a number of other waterfalls. I think there's another 70-foot waterfall, not dropping like this, but sort of a cascade, I guess, farther down. But I haven't gone down there. So here we are. We'll zoom up. Carpenter Falls there, and you go in the woods, and there's the side of the ravine. It's about 100 feet or more deep, and it's the Bear Swamp Creek Gorge, and it goes for a couple of miles. So here's the whole picture from Google Earth, looking from Carpenter Falls in the lower left all the way to Skaneateles Lake, and here is the preserve boundaries. Carpenter Falls at the bottom, going all the way to the lake. It doesn't encompass all the forest, but most of it. And you can see there's a trail that goes through there, which goes along the, I guess, the south rim. And then there's another trail that comes out to the road on the right and joins up near the bottom. And so here's the back at the kiosk where I started in the upper park. Near the falls. It's only a tenth of a mile to the falls from where you park up there. But this is looking the other way. It's looking east, and there's the beginning of the trail that goes, I don't know, a mile and a half or so, 1.3 or 4 miles, down to the next spot that you can reach, and that is over in this. You see where the this trail comes down to Apple Tree Point Road. That's Apple Tree Point. That's right. I said I didn't remember the name of that, but actually it's Apple Tree Point. Anyway, it comes over to Apple Tree Point Road on the right there, and you can drive over to there to a parking lot, and here is a trailhead there that'll take you about a half a mile down to the lake, and it does join the other trail. And here's a trail sign here with the mileages and so forth. So a lot of information there. And down at the bottom, this is where the trail comes right down to the lake, and there's a you might be able to make out on the right center there's a top of a staircase and a couple of signs. Now you can't park your car here. This is the weird thing. It's a great spot, but you can't park your car here because there's no place to park. It's private land. It's just a very small access to the lake. It's a very small lakeshore, but you can drop off here and park your car back up to this area. There's a parking lot up there, so that would be up on the right there, where you see the trail starts that joins the other trail. So you can drop your canoe off by the water, I guess, and then go back to that parking lot and hike down. I guess that's the idea. And you go down some steps down to the lake, and there we go. The steps go down, and there we are at the lake. Now let me see if I might have another video here. I don't remember whether I do. No. Thought I had another one, but I don't. So anyways, those are somebody's canoes there. They're private. So there's not a whole lot of public land there, but this is the view that you get down there across the lake. And that's a pretty nice spot, and you can get access to the lake. So it's one of the few places you can get public access to Skaneateles Lake, and so that's part of the idea of the Bahar Preserve, I guess. Okay, so that's my story about Carpenter Falls and the Bahar Preserve. Go to FLLT.org, Finger Lakes Land Trust, and get more information about it and those maps. And I encourage you to go visit it. You can get a nice hike in there, a couple of miles, and you can get to the lake, and you can, of course, see the waterfall. Be careful around the waterfall, of course. So now we're just going to take I just got a couple minutes left. We're going to take a look at Watkins Glen. I've got a video of Watkins Glen in an area they call, or it has been called, Glen Alpha, the first section of Glen when you walk up in there after the, what used to be the parking lot. They are now redoing the whole entrance of Watkins Glen. They're taking the cars out and they're putting them across the street, and it's going to be really nice next year when they finish it. So let's take a look at this little video of Watkins Glen State Park. Coming right up. In the middle of Glen Alpha, a staircase descends to a little landing lower in the gorge. Here, you are closer to the stream and in the middle of the gorge. A stupendous rocky scene rises around you. Two waterfalls are visible upstream, and the creek follows a twisting, polished path in the other direction toward Entrance Cascade. The cliffs above are rough and broken, with a tree here and a shrub there on the slope of rocky debris at the bottom. But down along the stream, the steep, rocky flanks of the creek are smooth and winding with very few plants. This is the flood zone, scraped by sand, gravel, and stones in torrents caused by heavy rain or melting snow, one front line of downward erosion where floods deepen the glen and smooth its rock. Okay, so that's just a little segment from a book I wrote called A Walk Through Watkins Glen, which I sell over in the park, and wrote that a number of years ago. Let's see, this is the 10th year of its publication, so I'm working on a companion video, so you may see that next year. I hope so, when they have the new grand opening of the new redone entrance. So we're running out of time here, so I want to thank you all for joining me for Walk in the Park. Go to walkinthepark.tv and you can see all of my episodes. And so I encourage you to turn off this screen and go outside and enjoy our world, especially this time of year.